Hello to our dear viewers at home. Hello, Rav Leitman. Rav, hello everyone. You're watching our show, First Steps in the Wisdom of Kabbalah, intended for beginning students just starting out with us. Today we want to go over a subject which I think is quite relevant to the time we live in, a subject called the last generation. Just to mention, for those hearing this for the first time, this idea, this term, there are writings that Baal HaSulam wrote in the 50s of the previous century. At the end of his days, he died at 1954. And it was at the end of his days, and it was very important for him to detail the structure, the formation of the future society, the way a human behaves in that human society. And Leitman, this word, the last generation, that term sounds a bit frightening. Frightening? Yeah, something frightening? I don't see it as frightening. What's wrong about it? What's bad? Well, it sounds, since the atom bomb in Hiroshima, the whole of humanity is preparing itself for their last days, and here it's the last generation. Everything's going to be gone. It doesn't sound cheerful. Rav. Well, so what? It's written that a person is concerned about his money rather than the length of his life, right? A person cares about how much he has and not how he will live. Look, the last generation is a generation which, according to the wisdom of Kabbalah, is composed of people who see the whole of reality in a transparent way. They see that all of reality is transient. Rather, it passes through all the worlds, through to the world of Ein Sof, infinity, and there's nothing that truly ends. We reach a very special process where we achieve equivalence, adhesion to the upper force, to the Creator. So I don't think that there is a problem here. Something we need to fear. Gilad, so it should be called the first generation. At long last, humanity begins to love. It's the first generation, yes, but there's no generations here. You see, until then we count the generations, one after the other, but truly, we have no last generation. It's all a process of development within the person, or the development of the system called Adam, human, which is similar to the Creator. It became opposite to the Creator through the sin of the tree of knowledge, as we learn, became fully egoistic, and the process continues until that will to receive becomes similar to the Creator. And this whole process is one which we cannot divide into such stages. Also, the way we live in this world, in a way where it seems to us like there's life and death, an upper world, a lower world, it's all relative. It's all just changes in our perception of reality and nothing more. Gilad, so what's the meaning of the term, the last generation? It's the last generation which comes out of its ego and begins to live in the true reality, the infinite reality, eternal one. Gilad, it's fascinating what you say, because when we look at the sociological breakdown or analysis of the last few generations, people are saying that generations become shorter. When Baal HaSulam wrote this, a generation was counted as 30 years. Now it's 15 20 years and it's the next generation, and those people born 20 years ago, 15 years ago, compared to those born now, it's a completely different thing. Rav, yes, that's true. Gilad, and you say that we'll reach a stage where there won't be this egoistic development, there won't be a state called a generation, but what will be then a different kind of development in humanity? Rav, there's a perceptual shift between generations, a different perception of nature regarding our own nature and the nature that surrounds us. So the last generation, that's a generation that opens up or breaks through the boundaries of nature, of this world, as we call it, and we begin to see through the perception of this world, we see it as transparent, and we see through it the upper world as well. And so we reach a state called the last generation, where there's nothing more. We perceive the whole of reality in a transparent way, in a complete way. And we no longer have a difference between generations. It just becomes all one generation. Gilad, just a continuous process of development. Rav, yes, and everyone shall know me from the least of them to the greatest of them, it's written, everyone. Gilad, he opens the introduction to the writings of the last generation. He says that there's an allegory about a society of people who are thirsty and hungry, roaming the desert, and one of them finds a settlement with every kind of food in abundance, and he calls the others and they can't hear him. Do you identify a bit with this allegory by Baal HaSulam? Rav, yes, the fact that we're lost in the desert, that's clear, I think, to everyone, especially these days. Gilad, these days, yes. Rav, in the times of the coronavirus, yes. And suddenly, what? And suddenly one of them finds a good place where you can live, it's not a desert, and he begins to shout, to call to him all of his friends to come from the desert to him. Gilad, what is that good place? What's there? What is there in it? Rav, well, there you have the recognition of the upper force and nature, the knowledge of how to live properly and well so as not to fail and run into constant problems. Gilad, that's what he has, and the others, Rav, he found it and the others didn't yet. Gilad, so you say the purpose of life is Baal HaSulam takes off the gloves there, right? He doesn't spare us. He says that the purpose of life there is to be awarded with the purpose of life through adhesion with the Creator, right? He says that there is a Creator and we need to find the Creator, and that's the purpose of life. Yes? And can you raise a child this way from age 0? Come listen, come feel it even? It's clear that he's not talking about some just morality or some knowledge teaching that needs to be coerced, right, on people. He talks about a state. Love. Yes, you can come to it, you can achieve it, and call everyone there, all the residents, all the friends that were lost in the desert. And this is on the condition that they're lost in the desert and they listen to the friend who found something. And then, yes, in that way, you can come to a good state. Gilad, what needs to happen for them to listen? They need to feel that they're in trouble, a dead end. I would now like to see how humanity begins to emerge from the coronavirus crisis. Will it want to return to what was in the past, or will it want to establish some corrections along the way, along the path, saying that this isn't worthwhile to come back to, that isn't worthwhile to do again, right? Because it's not a testing phase, right? There are many factories, many industries that we stopped during the coronavirus crisis, and they'll say, we're not coming back to that because that destroys the planet. Gilad, yeah, that sounds pretty clear, but will the owner of the factory want to do that, think like that? Rav, for that, there needs to be some supreme leadership that says, no, this we do not allow, that we do not allow, but this leadership has to be apolitical, without any interest, selfish interest, right? It needs to have a concern only for the integrality of nature, to bring the whole of humanity and the whole of nature to a state of balance. Gilad, so you say that now, following the coronavirus outbreak, we come very close to this period of the last generation. Rav, it could be, it's an opportunity. Gilad, so we got an opportunity? An opportunity sounds good, also a bit threatening. Rav, yes, it sounds good if we utilize, if we exploit the opportunity, but it's bad if we don't make use of it. So you understand here, it's a problem. Gilad, yes, but when we read what Baal HaSulam wrote, he says that a person will work for the sake of others to the best of his ability, and even above, beyond his abilities, until there won't be any thirst or hunger in the world, for example. That sounds, relative to today's humanity, a bit, I wouldn't want to say fantastical, delusional, but it's pretty far from what people today think and feel. So how can you make a person want to work above his abilities only so there won't be hunger in the world? It sounds, Rav, the dissemination of the wisdom of Kabbalah. It speaks of the balance between man and nature, or in other words, about the closeness of man and God, which is the same thing. God and nature, it's the very same thing. Gilad, he also says how a person won't enjoy the resources or the fruits of his work more than other people who need it more, and so on, or other people who are more diligent and work harder. Rav, this is like with animals. It's done by the general system that governs them, and in us, we need to do this with awareness, consciousness, and through very exacting work on ourselves. Gilad, what kind of regime do you see as being described in these writings? It's clear that communism's failed completely, and capitalism's also a failure. Rav, I don't think we should be using such words as capitalism, socialism, communism. It's all... We also don't really understand or are accurate about these definitions, calling some regime by some name. Rather, we need to come to a state where all of us, where we all know that the connection between us has to be all around the globe, a general connection where all of us are as one family. One family, and this is a bit difficult to imagine. Every person, black, white, yellow, red, it doesn't matter. Everyone have to be as one race, human beings, and everyone needs to be equal, and everyone, they all have to relate well to each other, treat each other well. And so there is no difference here. You cannot prefer one over another, and I need to be concerned about them all, caring for all of them. And I don't care about myself. I don't care for myself, only in a minimal way, so as to enable me to be concerned and care for others. That's my work. A person who finds himself devoted to the world, to the society, to the correction of humanity in such a way, he he is certain to function properly, correctly. Gilad, such person is one with an inclination, disposition for spiritual development, or everyone? Rav, yes, there are people who have this inclination, those who don't, but we can explain to them that there's no alternative really, and we must come to a proper way of living in the integral system, because all in all, we are the only ones in nature, in the entire universe, and you could say in all the worlds as well, the upper worlds, which we do not know as of yet. We, human beings, are the only creatures which are completely outside of this whole system and who are opposite to that general force called the Creator, God, or the law of nature. It doesn't matter what you call it. And here we have a problem in explaining these things, to actually bring our explanations in a proven way, to show that we need to live in a proper way, correctly, and that only if we're united and if we care for each other in that way, we will be a proper integral part of nature. Gilad, okay, so about the proof of it, we will talk about that soon, but he says something very interesting here. Perhaps you can explain. He says that the purpose of man is to achieve adhesion with the Creator, or to award others with achieving adhesion with the Creator. Rav, yes. Gilad, so let's take off the word adhesion, which sounds a bit religious, and Rav, no, adhesion means compatibility. Compatibility with the general integral force of nature. God, in Gematria, it's Hebrew, where you exchange words, letters for numbers. It comes out as nature. God is nature. The wisdom of Kabbalah made these terms, discovered these terms, and humanity who took it from them, received it. Instead of trying to learn, they started bowing, bending their knees. Right? People think sometimes instead of learning, it's better to just bow down and bow their heads, and that's it. Their work is done. No, nature requires our participation with our minds, with our emotions, in order to become like nature, where all the parts of nature, they need to be organized properly. Gilad, so according to what you say now, the purpose of man is to reach compatibility with nature, or to bring the rest of humanity to compatibility with nature? Rav, yes. Gilad, how do you bring the whole of humanity to compatibility with nature? Rav, through explanations, through communications, dissemination. That's what we try to do. We're at the beginning of the road. Gilad, it's clear that this is the beginning of the road, so that's why we're clarifying everything. That's the whole thing. So if a person has an inclination, a tendency to develop spiritually, and I suppose that people who come here have this, they want to learn, they're looking for some meaning to life and so on. So it's clear they want to reach some kind of compatibility, adaptability with respect to something great, and to receive that answer, yes. But how do we bring people who have no desire for this to want to be in adhesion with nature, compatible with nature? Only through dissemination, by us explaining it. That's what we do. And from the other side, coronavirus-like phenomena will come, and they will force everyone to think a bit more, to hear a bit more. Gilad, so we're adapting to nature, right? Nature pushes from behind, and we, Rav, from the side of nature, it's called be'ito, in due time, and from our side, it's called harishena, hastening the process, such that we come closer to the purpose quickly and participate with nature and be a part of nature in a good way. Gilad, okay, so Baal HaSulam says that there are three means we should use in the dissemination of this knowledge. He writes of 3 foundations for the spread of religion. By the word religion, what does he mean? Religion means the knowledge about divinity, about the upper force of nature. That's religion there. Gilad. So 3 means to spread the knowledge about the laws of nature. So he says that the first one is, I couldn't get the word, so, but in each person there's a spark that demands adhesion to the Creator, to God, to His source. So it's written that if anyone can supply him with this, to fulfill this desire, then he will follow him blindly. Fulfilling that desire means, again, we do this by dissemination. We explain to people the integral system that we're in, what happens to us there as part of that, how we need to behave in order to be in balance with nature. It's called the way I receive from nature, I also give back to nature. What I receive, I give back, and so we cause balance. And as a result of our balance, as we come closer to nature, this equilibrium, we will feel the equilibrium of the whole universe, and also above it. As today, we see that we left nature alone a little bit, and shut ourselves in our castles. Suddenly the animals are coming out into our nature reserves and parks. Fish are jumping happily in the water, the birds are singing, and we will see how all these great explosions in the universe, all the problems on Earth, hurricanes and so on, everything will start coming into balance. Nature you'll find that all of those natural forces are calming down, so to speak, because what we do by our inner wars is to awaken those powers. Gilad, we will also jump for joy like the fish and the animals when we're in balance with nature? Love, of course, and how? That will be the true dance. We will dance together with the forces of nature. And we will feel how we become embraced, enmeshed in an integral way with the forces of nature, Gilad, I see that there are many problems people ask you about, many troubles, and you say, wait, let's see where we need to reach, where we need to get to, and start the explanation from there. Because if we start the explanation from the person who's jobless now, the person who suffers over there, it'll never end. So this is a principle in the way we explain the idea of the last generation, yes? Rav, the principle is that we need to look to the future form which was set by nature ahead of time, and there's nothing we can do about it. We must achieve it, and then when we see that as the goal, we advance towards it, and it doesn't matter to me so much even the forms that I need to take along the way. Gilad, great. So this is the principle of dissemination we need to learn and adopt. Rav, yes. Gilad, okay, so proof regarding the atom bombs and things. We see that there is no future to the world otherwise. Rav, yes, well, look, we see how a tiny virus just paralyzes us all over the earth. So, of course, a nuclear war, which can not only paralyze us, but to destroy everything, with nothing left for us after it, no industry, no trade, no commerce, no houses, no apartments, nothing. Well, we're not even aware of what an opportunity we received through the coronavirus outbreak to correct ourselves without coming to a world war. which we were headed towards, and we were talking about it. I saw that people are talking about it in a calm way, as if there's no choice, seemingly. So let's hope very much that this is in the past, and that now we understand that we must organize our lives a bit differently in order to not return to what we had before, which will lead us to emptying the earth from all its resources, ruining ourselves and nature. By that we invite hurricanes and various natural disasters of various forms, and we bring the whole of humanity to this kind of fear and trembling, these sharp shocks of situations. And we need to see how nature disagrees with us. And if we do not arrange ourselves correctly with proper integration between us, there are many viruses in nature, many means in nature that can be used to awaken us and to order us properly. So let us be wiser. Gilad, yes, the last thing I want to touch upon, perhaps briefly, we mentioned it in the past. Here he says that the people of Israel need to be an example to humanity for how to apply everything we learned here, this integration with nature. Rav, the people of Israel must show the whole of humanity that they have a wisdom called the wisdom of Kabbalah, which is about how to come to be as one man with one heart, how to reach good, proper connection between us, by which we will correct everything that requires correction in nature. And if we correct it at the height of the human society, at the level of human society, everything will work out. Gilad, when he says the people of Israel, what does he mean exactly? Rav, he means only those people who are drawn towards correction, towards balance with nature and the revelation of divinity, which is called the general integral force of nature. That is called the people of Israel. There's no such thing as the people of Israel. There never was. It's only... It emerges as some kind of artificial people, artificial nation. All those who aspire to reveal the Creator in this world are called the people of Israel. Gilad, yes, now we see that the coronavirus unites all of humanity, and we see the opposite trend also of distancing. Countries are shutting their borders and so on. So how do you see unity forming above this separation? Rav, I think that we need to calculate and see how we can truly reach equilibrium, balance, steps towards it, stepping towards not what we had before and not what we can see as the ideal form that the wisdom of Kabbalah presents, but there are many stages on the way. We can cut it into slices, so to speak, and see how our relationships between us in various levels, on various levels, will be less and less opposite to nature. Gilad, and if you had to advise heads of state right now, what do you think they should do? Israel, by the way, is considered to be a success story with regards to the coronavirus, regarding with respect to the percentage of people who died and so on, how they managed to stop the spread. Many countries in the world take an example from Israel. So what can we do to serve as an example for emerging from the general crisis? Rav, that's possible to do only gradually and only through education. And I have nothing to advise the managers, the governments. I have no advice for them except to take into account what the wisdom of Kabbalah says and to gradually hear how we diminish our egoistic attitudes towards each other and towards nature as a whole. Gilad, okay, Rav Leitman, we're approaching the end of the show. Perhaps you can summarize the whole idea of the last generation that we're fast approaching. Rav, I think that we need to learn what nature means, the general force of nature, and how we participate with it in a proper way, in an integral way. And as is written in the Wisdom of Kabbalah, to just learn what's written there and to try to apply it. It's impossible to explain it in a single sentence. Rather, you need to learn and to study it and to become accustomed to it. So good luck, Gilad. Thank you very much, Rav Leitman.